Hello, friends. Welcome to another free Friday Tidbit. Even though this isn't Friday, my deepest apologies for being a few days late uploading this video. Friday, let me tell you, it was one for the records. Totally off subject. My husband and I were getting some new appliances, and installing the new microwave was a much bigger task than either of us could have ever dreamt. And it chewed up the whole day and ruined all of the plans that we both had for the day. So my apologies for not getting my free Friday tidbit up to you on Friday. But this is April. It is a new month. And the theme for this month is processing pace. And this is something that those of us who have been impacted by prenatal exposure to alcohol, also to other drugs and trauma, often have difficulties with. And it's not the only brain-based issue that has struggles in the area of processing pace. For instance, my mother, who has dementia, tremendous problems with processing pace. In fact, her tongue and her mind work at very different speeds, which has created one heck of a stutter, which at times, I have to admit, is pretty humorous. For both of us, thank goodness. But let me give you an example of a slow processing pace. And this is something that we often struggle with, right? Those of us who have been impacted by prenatal exposure to alcohol, if you're parents of a child who's been exposed to alcohol, then you are probably turning grayer than me out of your frustration at your child's slow processing pace. But let me give you an example. I'm going to read you a story, and I'm going to read it in a way that someone with a slower processing pace is going to hear it as you speak in a normal pace. Okay? A grate was about to off the birds, and when the two were collected together, the witch to the birds that said, "Come." But he said, "I am a," later on, of the who were passing him looked, said, "Us." But "I am." Luckily, at the last was, and no place. So the bat came to the, and in, but they, him and to, he then went, but soon had retreat, would have, said the bat. I now, of the story, he that is one has no. Did you follow that? This is what happens when a slow auditory processing issue occurs, and the person who's been affected by prenatal exposure to alcohol hears only one in every 3 or 4 words. Can you imagine how frustrating that would be if it were every conversation you had in a day? Can you imagine how exhausting it is, whether it's you or your child, to try and keep up with everybody else, to try and stay on topic in conversations, to try and answer questions in class or from your boss? Let me read you the entire passage. A great conflict was about to come off between the birds and the beasts. When the two armies were collected together, the bat hesitated which to join. The birds that passed his perch said, "Come with us," but he said, "I am a beast." Later on, some of the beasts who were passing underneath him looked up and said, "Come with us," but he said, "I'm a bird." Luckily, at the last moment, peace was made, and no battle took place. So the bat came to the birds and wished to join in the rejoicings, but they all turned against him and said, and he had to fly away. He then went to the beasts, but soon had to beat a retreat, or else they would have torn him to pieces. Ah, said the bat, I see now. Moral of the story? He that is neither one thing nor the other has no friends. Clearly, hearing only one word out of every 3 or 4 doesn't work very well. Can you imagine the stress at the end of the day? Heck, at the end of a classroom hour, at the end of a meeting. Can you imagine the stress? Can you imagine the mental exhaustion of trying to figure it all out? One of the coping mechanisms that people with slow auditory processing use is to come out with one of 2 very quick responses. What? As they get you to repeat something, they're hoping they'll hear some of those other words and be able to fill in those blanks. Or, I don't know. With I don't know, it's buying time to try and catch up, to fill in those blanks. Either way, what or I don't know, buys someone time for the processing to catch up. So if you find yourself in a conversation with someone who's saying, what, all the time, or who always or typically says, I don't know, whenever you ask them a question, that may be your clue that they struggle with processing pace. And the best thing you can do is slow down, give them time, allow their brain the extra time that it needs to keep up with you. And that is my Free Friday tidbit for last week. Have a great week, and I'll see you again in just a few days.